What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, former unified WBC, WBA, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, Keith one-time Thurman. Keith one-time Thurman is 30 wins, 1 loss, no draw, 22 wins by way of knockout, 33 years of age, 5'8" with a 69-inch arm reach. Keith Thurman explains that he was promised the opportunity that he was either going to get the fight with undefeated, unified 3-belt WBC, WBA, IBF, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, Errol the True Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. is widely considered top 2, if not number 1, definitely top 5 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, with a record of 28 wins, no loss, no draw, 22 big wins by way of knockout, 32 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach, and or an opportunity to fight for the WBC, World Boxing Council President Mauricio Suleiman boarded 32 members title, right? Hence the reason why Keith Thurman states that he wasn't going to fight and had no interest in fighting undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the reigning WBO, World Boxing Organization welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the number 1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is 38 wins, no loss, no draw, 29 big wins by way of knockout, 35 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach, right? So Keith Thurman, he states that he had no interest in fighting Terence Crawford. Now, initially, remember, keep in mind, when Terence Crawford defeated 2-time welterweight world champion, superstar, retired future Hall of Fame boxer, Showtime Shawn Porter in November of 2021, last year, November 20th of 2021. Keith Thurman, he took to social media, did interviews, and Keith Thurman, he stated he wasn't impressed with the outing of Terence Crawford. He wasn't impressed with Terence Crawford's stoppage victory over Shawn Porter, and he felt like he saw some holes. Now, Keith Thurman had been out the ring since July 2019 when he lost to Manny Pacquiao, right? And Keith Thurman was making his ring return in February of this year, February 5th against Mario Barrios, okay? So they fought in November. Keith Thurman was making his ring return in February. Keith Thurman, he stated, give me 8 months from the time that Terence Crawford fought Shawn Porter, which was November, give me 8 months from now, and I'll be ready to fight Terence Crawford, which would have landed in July, okay? November, say December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. That puts Keith Thurman on par and on schedule with his previous comeback, which was he went on a layoff March 4th of 2017. He unified the belt against two-time 2-division world champion Puerto Rican superstar boxer Danny Swift Garcia, right? Once he unified against Danny Garcia, okay, Errol Spence fought for his first world title opportunity against former IBF welterweight world champion British superstar boxer Special K Kell Brook, okay? He didn't unify. He went on a hiatus, okay? Keith Thurman did. He was out the ring. Keith Thurman was out the ring from March of 2017 to January of 2019 when he fought Josito Lopez, okay? He beat Josito Lopez, but he looked vulnerable. That was January of 2019. Then in July of 2019, he fought and lost to Manny Pacquiao. He lost the WBA title. He lost the WBC due to inactivity, okay? Now, I want y'all to follow me. He lost the WBC title due to inactivity. He won it from Danny Garcia in the unification bout, March 4th of 2017. He never defended the title, and he never actually, represented the WBC title because he went on a 2-year hiatus, right? They stripped him in a nice way of the WBC title, okay? And promised him that they would give him the opportunity to regain that title, right? Now, keep this in mind. Keith Thurman has fought 3 times total since fighting Danny Garcia in 2017. We're going into 2023. So in a 6-year span, Keith Thurman has fought a total of 3 times. He fought Josito Lopez, Manny Pacquiao, and Mario Barrios in February of this year. He was promised to get his opportunity. So they want to, the PBC, Premier Boxing Champion, founder and advisor Al Heyman, they've been wanting to make this in-house fight with Keith Thurman and Errol Spence Jr., right? But Keith Thurman, he states that he never received a contract, right, from Errol Spence and Errol Spence's team. Well, why would Keith Thurman receive a contract when he was the A side? Errol Spence had his first title opportunity. First time even fighting for a title was against Kell Brook 2 months after Keith Thurman unified the titles. So Keith Thurman was the unified undefeated champion. He was viewed as the best fighter in the welterweight division, not named Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. It was the new era. It was a changing of a leaf, right? Changing of the guards. It was a new era. Keith Thurman was the best welterweight. He and Kell Brook lost to Errol Spence and he lost to Triple G. That left Keith Thurman as the #1 welterweight in the world, okay? So why would Errol Spence and his team send Keith Thurman a contract? Keith Thurman's supposed to send them a contract. He's supposed to inform Al Heyman that that's the fight that he wants to make. Keith Thurman publicly was saying that he wasn't going to fight Errol Spence yet. The time wasn't right. He wanted to let it marinate, right? He even admitted that he dropped the ball on that because he lost it. He thought it was his Mayweather-Manny Pacquiao fight, and he actually fought Manny Pacquiao and lost to Manny Pacquiao. So he didn't have to have a Manny Pacquiao Mayweather 2.0. He actually fought Manny Pacquiao and lost to Manny Pacquiao, right? And so that put him on par, right? And so he's been out the ring for 6 years, 3 total fights. And Keith Thurman is saying that he was promised by the PBC and the WBC to get his opportunity either to fight Errol Spence or to fight for the WBC title, which means why Keith Thurman says he was surprised out of nowhere. The WBC voted that they wanted to make Mario Barrios versus Keith Thurman fight a title eliminator, right? Out of nowhere. Mario Barrios was coming off of a knockout loss and moving up a whole weight class and was never a super champion. He was a WBA regular champion. So why would Keith Thurman and Mario Barrios be a WBC title eliminator? It didn't make sense. Mario Barrios wasn't a WBC champion, right? Nonetheless, they made it a title eliminator. Why? Because they were pushing for the Errol Spence fight in-house. So Keith Thurman immediately, now keep in mind, Terence Crawford, he goes on Sean Porter's WELTERWEIGHT podcast, and Terence Crawford is asked about fighting Keith Thurman. And Terence Crawford says, well, why do Keith Thurman? I don't have a promoter. He parted ways from longtime promoter, Matchroom CEO, top-ranked CEO, legendary promoter, Bob Arum, and ESPN, right? He parted ways with them, right? And so with that said, once he parted ways with them, right? Then it left him a free agent. He didn't have to, look to fight, anybody. I mean, as far as promotional company, he didn't have to worry about that being a hindrance, right? And so he went on the WELTERWEIGHT podcast, to which he stated that, he was open to fighting Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman said, give me 8 months. It presented itself for him to fight, right, against Keith Thurman. And guess what happened? Keith Thurman turns around and Keith Thurman says, well, I'm not interested in fighting Terence Crawford because now I'm in line to fight Errol Spence. That's the fight. That was the big fight. That was the initial big fight. Now it's presented itself. I'm going to take the opportunity and the time to be able to fight Errol Spence and fight for the WBC title. Then Keith Thurman goes on to tell the world how the WBO wasn't even recognized to be one of the 4 major sanction belts, and that the WBC, that the WBO was new to the party. You normally could be undisputed initially, right? The first belt to ever be made was the WBA with President Gilberto Mendoza, but obviously he wasn't the first one to create the belt. And then the WBC came along, and then the IBF came along, and most recently in the early 2000s, the WBO had been recognized as one of the major sanction belts. Okay. So with that said, right, Keith Thurman is saying the initial, in his mind, in his view, right, he can be undisputed without the WBO title, right? So he wants to fight Errol Spence, in-house fight. So he turned down the opportunity to fight Terence Crawford, right? But the question remains is that why did the WBC do so? They're pushing this Keith Thurman fight. So Keith Thurman is saying he was promised this opportunity, right? And now Keith Thurman, is saying that he wants to, fight Errol Spence. He was promised. So if Errol Spence gets stripped of the belt, so now the WBC held the convention yesterday, and in the convention it's expected for them to mandate Errol Spence to fight Keith Thurman, right? Or he's gonna run the risk of being stripped. Okay, so with that said, now, right, we should be getting an announcement soon. Errol Spence stated he has no interest in fighting Keith Thurman. He don't want to fight Keith Thurman. He said all the times they keep saying that should Keith Thurman fight Errol Spence, he don't want to fight. Errol Spence says he don't want no interest because Keith Thurman gave him the runaround. So he has zero interest in fighting Keith Thurman. But they're pushing this Keith Thurman fight. And now Errol Spence said his next fight is not going to be a tune-up. It's going to be a major fight. And then he's going to spin the block and come back to the Terence Crawford fight, right? And people are speculating, is Errol Spence going to move up to 154? Is Errol Spence going to come back down to, 147? That'd be detriment to his body, right? I think it behooves Errol Spence to go ahead and fight Keith Thurman, right? But we don't know, what's next for Errol Spence, right? But it seems pretty clear to me that Errol Spence should just go ahead and fight Keith Thurman. Since the Terence Crawford fight is not happening next, then he could, like he said, spin the block and fight Terence Crawford. Going up to 154 right now for Errol Spence is just, it's detriment. But Keith Thurman is saying he was promised. So we should get an announcement and a resolution to this week, because the WBC held their convention. So now we're going to find out, are they going to mandate that Errol Spence have to fight Keith Thurman? As Keith Thurman said, he was promised this opportunity. Hence the reason why he turned down Terence Crawford fight. They're trying to force Errol Spence into this fight. The question is, did they always have this plan in mind for Keith Thurman to fight Errol Spence? Because Terence Crawford is an outside entity. Let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all in one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.